This is Beijing Capital International Airport. Look, it's empty. There's hardly anyone in the airport now, but it used to be packed with people. This is the domestic departure area, and it's also pretty deserted, way less crowded than before. Now, with all the foreign investment and foreigners leaving in droves, international air travel is in a slump. The scene at the Beijing International Airport is bleak, with hardly anyone around. After passing through customs to international departures, this terminal is desolate. Look around, most of the shops are closed. It's kinda funny, all these stores are shut. The luxury brand shops, all closed. Even over here, these shops have mostly been closed for like half a year now. I've heard people say that the foreigners in the country are gone, and looking at it now it seems like that's true. For food, there's just a KFC and the Starbucks left. Look, only a Hermes is open and maybe one or two duty-free shops. This side is all closed up too. This is probably why all the duty-free concept stocks have been hit hard this year. Traveling internationally just isn't great right now, plus consumer spending power is really down. This man recently departed from Beijing Capital International Airport and was astonished to find the usually bustling airport eerily deserted, with no travelers in sight. The once thriving duty-free and luxury stores were all closed, a surprising sight for him. A netizen also shared their experience of departing from Beijing Capital International Airport for France. They noted that the entire airport had only 2 international flights that morning, one to the United States and the other to France. International travelers were sparse and the VIP lounges had only a handful of foreigners scattered around. According to an insider in the aviation industry, recently international flights at Beijing Capital Airport have been frequently cancelled due to a lack of passenger flow, causing significant inconvenience and loss to travelers. Getting our international flights back up and running is still pretty tough. On one hand, policies are encouraging flights to resume, and routes that were stopped during the pandemic are coming back. But on the other hand, the number of passengers is nowhere near pre-pandemic levels, so a lot of flights are getting cancelled every now and then, which isn't great for our international image. Take Beijing Capital Airport, for example. On November 26, Pakistan Airlines PK-854 flight didn't show up. This flight is only once a week, but it got cancelled anyway. And if you look back, on November 24th, Lufthansa's Frankfurt flight LH720 and Hainan Airlines Moscow flight HU 7986. On the 23rd, Asiana Seoul flight OZ 335 and others didn't operate as planned. Shanghai Pudong, which has a lot of international and Hong Kong, Macau and Taiwan routes, is also pretty bad. Checking the tracking software, on November 27, Hong Kong Airlines HX 246, Spring Airlines 9C 8578, Capital Airlines JD 613 to Bangkok, and Thai Lion Air's SL 926 to Bangkok were all cancelled. Thailand seems to be hit the worst. There was news the other day that due to low passenger numbers, this December and next January, 10 Chinese airlines will cut around 9,000 flights, about a 40% reduction. Thailand is waiving visas for Chinese, so you wouldn't expect this to happen. In reality, flight cancellations are happening on almost all routes. The round-trip ticket price for Spring Airlines Beijing Jeju, including taxes, has now fallen below 1,000 yuan. These frequent cancellations of international flights are really worrying, especially when you've got foreign guests involved. It doesn't look good internationally. Like the Jeju Island flight that Junjiao Airlines cancelled. They only notified less than a day in advance, past the hotel's free cancellation time, so the loss was huge. But if the passenger numbers are too low and the airline loses hundreds of thousands on a single flight, it's not really worth it for them either. Jeju Island is visa-free for Chinese tourists, and it's one of the popular places for Chinese to travel. Right now, the lack of passengers is mainly because everyone's just out of money. When I returned to China in 2018, fast food restaurants, duty-free shops, it was very lively. This time when I got off the plane, it really felt like there were hardly any people. And my flight landed at 4 p.m., which should be a busier time. The duty-free shops were quiet, not many people shopping. Beijing Capital International Airport from 2010 to 2019 was ranked as the world's second busiest airport in terms of passenger traffic, trailing only behind Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in the United States. However, according to the 2023 Mid-Year Global Civil Aviation Flight Operation Report, Beijing Capital Airport has now fallen to 29th place in the global ranking of the top 50 airports by outbound flight volume. The data shows that the global number of actual outbound flights in the first half of 2023 was about 15.7 million, a 25% increase compared to 2022 and a recovery of over 80% compared to the same period before the pandemic in 2019. As global civil aviation gradually recovers from the shadow of the pandemic, Beijing Capital Airport, China's largest and a gateway airport, has not seen an improvement in its outbound flight volume. In fact, it has become increasingly desolate, a far cry from the bustling activity of 2019. The number of outbound flights from an airport is an indicator of its busyness and future prospects. A busy airport usually signifies a region's economic vitality, frequent business exchanges, and attracts more airlines and passengers. Thus, the quiet state of Capital Airport also reflects the slump in China's economy. 3 years of the pandemic, coupled with the Chinese government's strict lockdown policies, have caused unprecedented impacts on the civil aviation industry. The sharp decline in passenger throughput has plunged many airlines into losses. Data shows that China's civil aviation industry lost nearly 400 billion yuan. Capital Airport is no exception. Between 2018 and 2019, the airport's passenger throughput exceeded 100 million. However, after the outbreak of the pandemic in 2020, the number of passengers plummeted, with 2021's traffic only 33% of 2019's, dropping to 6th place. In 2022, it further fell to 13% of 2019's, ranking 11th. The annual passenger throughput of less than 13 million in 2022 set a record low for Capital Airport since the 21st century. After China's pandemic control measures were relaxed this year, the airport faced an unprecedented exodus of foreign capital and a sharp decrease in foreign tourists, resulting in little improvement in its operation. According to Chinese media reports, as of August 11, 2023, Capital Airport's passenger throughput was a bit over 30 million, with international and regional passengers exceeding 3.5 million. Converted to annual passenger flow, it is only equivalent to about 40% of the 2019 level. Concurrently, with the decline in passenger throughput, Capital Airport's losses have continued to rise. According to its annual report, in 2020, the net loss was 2 billion yuan, in 2021 the net loss was 2.1 billion yuan, and in 2022 the net loss reached 3.5 billion yuan. A famous Chinese blogger, Civil Aviation Wings, stated, quote, "From 2020 to 2022, Capital Airport has been the king of losses among all airports for 3 consecutive years, with a cumulative net loss of 7.7 billion yuan. Even in the third quarter of this year, when airports were making money, Capital Airport still incurred a net loss of 300 million yuan. From January to September 2023, the net loss was 1.3 billion yuan. Capital Airport became the only loss-making listed airport. Regarding Capital Airport's consecutive years of losses, some netizens believe it is due to the opening of the new Daxing Airport in Beijing in 2019, which diverted many flights, leading to insufficient passenger traffic at Capital Airport. Therefore, some netizens said, quote, "After the T3 terminal at Capital Airport was completed, it could already meet the demand." Building another Daxing Airport resulted in both airports operating under capacity, so it's no surprise they're incurring losses. Another netizen, Summer, said, quote, "Anyone who often flies knows that Capital Airport's losses are due to the lack of flights. Capital Airport is in the north and Daxing Airport is in the south. Most flights are at Daxing Airport, so those living in the north wanting to fly from Capital Airport have no flights. Instead, they have to spend 2 to 3 hours traveling from the north to Daxing and the same when returning to Beijing. Considering this 2-hour journey, if the trip isn't far within 1,000 kilometers, it's better to take the high-speed train." Of course, even if flights are split evenly between the two airports, capital is still worse off than Daxing, which has better infrastructure, more shops, and dining options. So, what is the situation in Daxing Airport, which many believe has diverted passengers from Capital Airport? This is the international departure area of Daxing International Airport. They say it's open, but why are there so few people? International, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, there are still too few flights. Hardly any people. This is the flight to Doha, this one to Kuala Lumpur. There are some people. These are the more popular flights. This is the international area. There's one duty-free shop open called CDF. The previous one was Sunrise. Now that so few people are traveling abroad, food and beverage outlets, those shops from before, none are open. After Daxing Airport was built, international flights only operated for a year before the pandemic hit, and there were hardly any people. Mainly because there are too few international flights, only 5. Now it's just past 11 a.m. Restaurants and cafes are not open. On September 25, 2019, Beijing Daxing International Airport, constructed at a cost of 80 billion yuan, was officially put into operation. Xi Jinping, in a rare move, personally presided over the opening ceremony, attended by Han Zheng and Liu He, both ex-vice premiers of China, and Cai Qi, secretary of the Beijing Municipal Committee. This indicated a high level of importance placed on the project by the Chinese Communist Party leadership. Daxing Airport is located between Daxing District in southern Beijing and Guangyang District in Langfeng, Hebei Province. It boasts a terminal building with a total floor area of 1.4 million square meters and plans for 6 runways, claiming to be the largest newly built airport in the world. Constructed in just 4 years, Daxing Airport is another showcase project launched by the CCP authorities for the National Day celebrations and is also seen by outsiders as a face project to bolster the CCP's image. The CCP propaganda claimed that Daxing Airport, along with Capital Airport, would handle over 250 million passengers annually, making Beijing an, quote, aviation dual hub city. However, less than 4 months after its inauguration, Daxing Airport faced 3 years of pandemic challenges. Not only did Daxing Airport fail to achieve its projected passenger flow, but it also affected the passenger traffic at Beijing Capital Airport, leaving both in a difficult situation. In 2022, it was noticed that many shops that had moved to Daxing Airport in 2019 were closing down. Like many physical stores across China, Daxing Airport is now filled with signs marked, quote, prime location for rent. A netizen commented, quote, with so few flights and shops closing, shouldn't the airport consider closing some terminals to save on air conditioning, cleaning, and security personnel? If it were a private owner, wouldn't they be losing money hand over fist? In September this year, a netizen departed from Beijing Daxing Airport to Japan and found the entire airport waiting hall empty, devoid of people. He sarcastically remarked that the new espionage law implemented by the CCP authorities has kept foreign tourists, potential spies in their eyes, out of the country. Beijing time 9:30 a.m. at Beijing Daxing Airport. I've already passed through customs and the international waiting hall here is just as empty as the T3 international waiting hall at Capital Airport. I think the country's policy is very good, keeping all the foreign spies out of the country. Thumbs up. Because if you keep letting these foreigners enter, you never know who might be a spy. Really? Shanghai Pudong International Airport, one of China's 3 major gateway hub complexes and a member of the International Air Cargo Hub Group in the Yangtze River Delta region, is also China's 3rd largest airport. Once bustling, it is now quiet due to a sharp decrease in foreign tourists. This is Shanghai Pudong International Airport. I don't know if it's because there are normally fewer people in the satellite hall or for some other reason. This is the other side. Seems like there aren't many people either. I came to the departure hall of Pudong International Airport and found that there were very few passengers. Hardly saw a few people. Just a few retired elderly. Many shops are closed. It's a bit desolate. Just like the last time I came. Nothing has changed. Even the VIP room on the 4th floor is not open. Can't find a place to eat. This scene is really quite bleak. Luckily, the Sunrise duty-free shop selling cosmetics is still open, and this side with Chanel bags and perfumes seems to be open too. Finally, a bit of life. Overall, I estimate that about 50% of the businesses have closed down. With international tourism not flourishing and domestic tourism recovering but hampered by economic downturn and downgraded consumption, people prefer budget travel, traveling without shopping or spending much. This gentleman discovered at Shanghai Pudong Airport that almost all shops in the commercial street of the domestic flight waiting hall were closed. There are only 3 shops open in the whole airport, one Hepu Coffee, one Costa Coffee, and one restaurant inside the airport. All the other shops are closed. It's really strange. Every other shop in the airport is closed. I don't know why. This shop is the only one operating and the prices are quite high. I didn't know about this situation before. Look, all the other shops, any shop, are closed. This whole commercial street, the one for domestic flights, is all closed. Probably can't operate anymore, including Boss and Armani. All closed. Inside is the same, like this Moncler, also closed. They sell expensive down jackets. Dodds says coming soon. This is the main entrance, where all the tourists enter the country. In this whole airport, all the shops inside are closed. It's clear there's no purchasing power. Look at these shops. This whole commercial street is closed. The brick-and-mortar economy has taken a severe hit. Additionally, netizens have posted videos claiming that Shanghai Hongqiao Airport and Wuhan Tanhua Airport are also very quiet. This is Shanghai Hongqiao International Airport. Now it's 7 p.m. peak time, but there are still very few people. This is the international boarding gate at Wuhan Tanhua Airport. Now it's November 19th, 2023, 11:10 p.m. This area is for boarding international flights. Probably because there are too few international flights, it's very quiet. This is the check-in counter for domestic flights. There are quite a few people. Look, this is the international flight area. Almost no one. This year's outbound travel is completely cold. No chance of recovery now. In fact, this year, a noticeable trend emerged. A significant decrease in foreigners across China, whether for business or tourism. Media reports throughout the year have stated that the number of foreigners coming to China has dropped by 90%. This is not only due to geopolitical factors leading to the decoupling of European and American countries from China, but also the contradictory actions of the CCP, which publicly claims to attract foreign investment but implements policies that deter it. A typical example is the new version of the, quote, anti-espionage law implemented in July this year, further deterring foreigners from coming to China. On July 1st this year, the CCP government implemented a revised, quote, anti-espionage law. The law is vaguely defined, giving the CCP complete interpretative authority over, quote, espionage, allowing for the detention and search of anyone in China without any evidence of a crime. Moreover, the CCP has called on the public to join the anti-espionage struggle, encouraging reports of suspected espionage behavior among acquaintances. A reward of up to 500,000 yuan is offered for verified espionage reports. At the time, the Public Security Bureau of Tongbai County, Henan Province, even released a promotional video titled, quote, "Look out for the walking 500,000. It was an outright encouragement for people to engage in surveillance, viewing foreigners on the streets as potential sources of a 500,000 yuan reward.
The walking 500,000. Let me explain. According to the regulations, citizens who report espionage activities and play a significant role in solving spy cases can be rewarded up to 500,000 yuan. Spies could be lurking right around us, possibly someone you pass by on your way home from work. If you are in a military restricted area and see someone with recording equipment acting suspiciously, or someone repeatedly posting inappropriate comments online, they might just be what's referred to as the walking 500,000.
According to this female police officer, not only can actions such as taking photos in sensitive areas or displaying other suspicious behaviors be reported, but also those who criticize the Chinese Communist Party online are subject to reporting. Successful reports can earn a reward of 500,000 yuan. Therefore, under such circumstances, if you are a foreigner who has expressed criticism of China on social media or in other settings, you should carefully consider before planning a trip to China whether you will be able to return home.